Professor Rakoff, you are trying to teach the Supreme Court a history that they certainly present themselves as if they know all of this, but so often they seem to veer off in their own historical adventures.
Well, it's true, Lawrence. All kinds of claims are made about history, often on partial or even specious grounds. And it's the historian's task, whether we write as individuals or collectively, as we do in this brief, to come up with the somewhat more complicated, richer, but also more accurate explanation of what was the mental world that the framers of the Constitution occupied, and how did they think about executive power in the way that they did. And so it's basically our task to get the historical record out there, so both the justices, but also the American body politic, the educated, intelligent citizens will understand the richness of that history, and therefore will be better able to recognize the speciousness of the claims pending in the current litigation.
You have, as historian, debated with yourself and been in debates about what did this mean, what were they trying to do, and used your professional tools to try to investigate to get to answers to that. But in your brief, you say, sometimes history speaks ambiguously, but here it speaks with surpassing clarity. Talk about that clarity and how valuable that is in a situation like this.
I think the clarity derives from the fundamental fact that the desire and the concern to limit, one could say, to cap an executive power was the major motif, really a dominant theme in both British and American political thinking in the 17th and the 18th century. In a certain sense, that's what the Glorious Revolution of 1688 and its aftermath accomplished in Great Britain. The American colonists in the 18th century, because of the nature of their dealings with royal governors and to some extent the British monarchy, shared those concerns. And when they started writing constitutions, both in 1776 at the state level and then in 1787 at the national level, the question about what to do with executive power, how to think about it, how to empower it, but also how to limit it, was really one of the main concerns. I think it was actually the most difficult concern they faced. You know, we spend a lot of time these days, as your prior segment suggested, worrying about the Supreme Court and the basis of judicial review and the different theories of interpretation. And we spend a lot of time worrying about the partisan gerrymandering of Congress. But the design of a national Republican executive in the 1780s was a truly difficult problem. But the one thing that really held the founding generation together, both the framers of the Constitution and the ratifiers, was their conviction that the chief task of the president, as Article 2 of the Constitution says, is he shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. And it's that obligation, or actually the better term to use here, it's that responsibility which really underlay the whole framework for thinking about executive power at the time the Constitution was written. So to get the kind of wild claims about presidential immunity from legal constraints, particularly in a self-serving way, when the Constitution itself and our whole election system gives the president no authority at all over the conduct of elections, just shows the sheer outrageousness of the claims being made by Trump and his lawyers.
Well, Donald Trump has really bothered by your brief and has decided to comment on it tonight. So we will listen to this, and I want you to imagine a Stanford student standing up in one of your classrooms and saying this. Let's listen to this.
This is not what the founders had in mind at all. This is not what they wanted to think about. This is not where they wanted us to be. The founders wanted the president to have immunity so the president can feel free to make decisions.
What grade does he get, Professor?
You're really is this on a pass no credit scale, or do you want it on
I want the standard Stanford grading system here.
Well, it's obviously enough. I mean, I always thought Trump played a terrible joke on the American people when he swore the inaugural oath back on January 20th, 2017. I doubt he's ever read the Constitution. I certainly think he's never studied it. He's never discussed it. It's just it's a pathetic situation for so many tragic and threatening reasons. That we have a president who's constitutionally illiterate as well as politically incapable of dealing with the responsibilities of his office.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.